NFL football is full of surprises. Every game features players who make the seemingly impossible look possible. Sometimes when you look at the stat sheet after a game, you have to take a second glance to make sure you're seeing things correctly. And sometimes, even after you take a double take, you still can't believe it. Today, we'll be covering some stat lines that'll leave you looking as confused as Eli Manning after a bad interception. The craziest stat lines in NFL history. Gale Sayers, 336 total yards, 6 touchdowns. December 12, 1965 marks the day Gale Sayers put in a once-in-a-lifetime performance for the Chicago Bears. Sayers was the most electric player of the 60s, a scoring machine that ran through the NFL. Against the San Francisco 49ers, Sayers found the end zone at will, turning a screen pass into an 80-yard touchdown just 2 minutes into the game. The field was muddy, conditions were awful, and players were slipping everywhere. Well, everybody except Gale Sayers. He elegantly cut, twisted, and turned with precision, leaving 49ers defenders in his dust. Following up his receiving touchdown, he ran for 4 more. He finished the game with 336 total yards, which included a fourth-quarter 85-yard punt return touchdown to mark his 6th and record-setting touchdown performance. What gets lost is that Sayers was a rookie, unstoppable from the moment he was drafted into the NFL. After his 6th touchdown, head coach George Halas rested his star runner, even though they had the opportunity to get Sayers his 7th. In the most incredible performance in NFL history, rookie Gale Sayers lived in the end zone and wowed the audience for generations to come. Adrian Peterson, 296 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. At the half, Minnesota Vikings running back Adrian Peterson only had 43 yards on 13 carries, and his team was struggling on offense. Then he came alive, running himself into the record books in the process. Starting with his first carry in the second half, the San Diego Chargers' long day lasted all day. Peterson went on a tear, ending the day with 296 yards, the single-game rushing record. 250 came during the second half, where he laid waste to Chargers defenders and repeatedly high-stepped into the end zone. It was clear that as soon as Peterson broke through the initial line of scrimmage, he was going to scamper in for a score, cutting back and breaking would-be tackles with ease. The greatest rushing performance came at an incredible clip, nearly averaging 10 yards a carry and over 15 yards a carry in the second half alone. Peterson juked and trucked his way into the NFL lore with a performance for the ages. Sammy Baugh, 4 interceptions, 4 touchdown passes, 180 passing yards. This is a stat line that we will absolutely never see again. Slingin' Sammy Baugh recorded the first 4-interception game in history in 1943, which is impressive enough, but Sammy Baugh was like a two-way guard in the NBA, shutting down the opponent and scoring at will. He also led the Washington Redskins on offense as a quarterback, notching 4 passing touchdowns and 180 yards. The next day, the paper read, "Sammy Baugh does it all," and there's really not a better way to put it. Baugh even recorded an 81-yard punt. He played like the older kid at the park, dominating the game on both offense and defense. There have been 14 players to match Baugh's single-game interception record since 1943, but not a single one of them also threw a touchdown, let alone 4 in the same game. This game is the pedestal for athleticism, and why Sammy Baugh is widely thought of as the most complete football player of all time. Flipper Anderson, 15 receptions, 336 yards, 1 touchdown. Only 6 times has a player caught for 300 yards in the long storied history of the NFL. None of them are more absurd than Flipper Anderson's 336-yard game. Asked about it, Flipper said that he felt like Michael Jordan dropping 60 points on the Celtics. Another one-hit wonder on this list, the LA Rams receiver was unguardable on November 26, 1989. Anderson caught everything thrown his way, leaping, stretching, and running under passes. In one of of the greatest outlier games in NFL history. It took all 15 of Flipper's receptions to help the Rams get a tough overtime victory. Anderson only had 171 yards headed into the fourth quarter, with his team down 2 touchdowns. But Anderson's deep threat ability helped the Rams surge back, as quarterback Jim Everett kept finding him behind the defense. On the last catch that put him in the record books and the Rams in a game-winning position, Anderson laid on the ground a little bit longer, bathing in the spotlight. Or maybe he was just exhausted from his historic performance. Some of the greatest names in football fill the single-game receiving ranks, but only Flipper Anderson sits at the top. Vernon Perry, 4 interceptions, 8 tackles, and 1 blocked field goal. Vernon Perry is probably a name you've never heard of, and for good reason. Perry had little accolades in the NFL, never making any Pro Bowls or All-Pro teams. In fact, he only played 4 seasons after a stint in the CFL, but our one-hit wonder has a place in the NFL record books that will probably never be unseated. In a playoff game against the Chargers, Vernon Perry intercepted quarterback Dan Fouts 4 times, and even blocked a field goal along the way. His superhuman effort helped propel the Houston Oilers to an AFC championship game. Not to mention, all the Oilers' offensive superstars were injured going into the game. Severely undermanned, the underdogs needed something short of a miracle. What they got is maybe the greatest defensive playoff performance in NFL history. Perry's 4 interceptions kept the Chargers out of the end zone and gave the Oilers' offense the surge that it severely lacked. While Perry will never make the Hall of Fame, he has a story and the claim to the greatest postseason defensive performance ever. Derek Thomas, 7 sacks. Most of the stats on this list just tell a story of their own, perking up the interest of the audience. However, this story becomes just as much about what it could have been. Few men have been feared in the NFL more than Kansas City Chiefs pass rusher Derek Thomas. Against the Seahawks in 1990, Thomas went on an absolute rampage, terrorizing Seahawks QB Dave Craig for 4 quarters. He notched 7 sacks, shattering the old single-game sack record. One of those sacks led to a fumble and the only touchdown scored by the Chiefs on the day. It didn't matter how the Seahawks tried to slow down Thomas, who broke through for sack after sack. He already held the sack record by the last drive, and the Chiefs were hanging on to a slim lead. In a last-second play on the goal line, Thomas and Craig wrapped up for what looked like his 8th and game-sealing sack, but Craig slipped his grip. With Thomas chasing once more, Craig threw a dart in the end zone to win the game. After a game for the ages, all Thomas could do was think about the one that got away. Luke Kuechly, 24 tackles and 1 interception. Carolina Panthers linebacker Luke Kuechly looks like Superman, and more often than not plays like him too. Nobody possesses instincts quite like Kuechly, able to diagnose what the offense is doing before they even do it, impacting the game on nearly every play. This was never more evident than on December 22, 2013, when Kuechly tied the single-game tackle record against the New Orleans Saints. We're not the only ones that think this crazy stat is memorable. So does Saints quarterback Drew Brees. When asked about the performance, Drew said, "I remember 24 tackles and a pick." Kuechly was a ball magnet, knifing through a sea of blockers and decking his opponents. Saints head coach Sean Payton backed up his QB's statement, saying, "He's around every play, just pick a game." The boy wonder almost single-handedly stifled the prolific Saints offense, and his interception late in the game sealed a 17-13 Panthers victory. Drew Bledsoe, 45 for 70, 426 yards and 3 touchdowns. 26 years ago, the NFL looked vastly different. Teams weren't throwing it all around in spread-out formations, and the Patriots hadn't even won a Super Bowl yet. Drew Bledsoe was a second-year QB for the struggling 1994 New England Patriots. His team fell to a 20-3 deficit at halftime against the Minnesota Vikings. Coming out of the half, Bledsoe threw the ball. Then he threw again, and again, and again. Bledsoe blew the single-game pass attempt number out of the water. throwing 70 passes and leading his team to a miraculous comeback. And it took every single one of them, 47 in the second half. And his 70th and final pass attempt was a game-winning touchdown in overtime to complete the comeback. What makes the numbers so insane is that even in a pass-happy league 26 years since, nobody has yet to break Bledsoe's record. Without a running game to help, Bledsoe firmly set the team on his right shoulder and left spectators in awe. Brandon Marshall, 21 receptions, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On December 13, 2009, there wasn't anybody with an easier job in the NFL than Broncos QB Kyle Orton. All he did was catch the snap, look, and find number 15 and throw it in his general direction. During pregame warm-ups, Broncos wide receiver Brandon Marshall told his coach that he felt like he was going to have the best game he's ever had. He was right. Marshall caught a single-game record 21 passes against the Indianapolis Colts. For reference, Colts quarterback Peyton Manning only completed 20 passes in the same game. The Colts simply could not stop the Orton-Marshall connection, which totaled 200 yards and 2 touchdown grabs. Trailing most of the game, Marshall got a plethora of chances to make plays at the expense of the Colts secondary. The 6'4" receiver was too big and too strong to handle, keeping drives alive nearly on his own. While they came up short, losing 28-16, Marshall forever etched himself into NFL history by being simply uncoverable. So, what do you guys think? Who's gonna put up a stat line like this in the upcoming season? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching Nonstop Sports. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and make sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.